Wonderful to see all of you, so many students here. So let's get started. It's first a pleasure to have both of you on stage. Anupama, welcome back. I guess it's been 15 years since you've been at Northwestern, at least that.
15, yeah.
And Mallika, an absolute pleasure to meet you and get to know more about you in the next 45 minutes or so. So can you share with us something about your early experiences at Northwestern? How was it when you were here? Any fun experiences to share with our crowd here?
So first of all, I have to tell you, so I'm middle, class of 91, okay, and at that time, it's never a good time to be a journalist, but that was one of the worst times. It was the magazine and the newspaper industry was in a bad place, and we always looked at the kids in Kellogg with a little bit of jealousy, like because you guys got hired before you graduated. I was the only one in my class to get a job with a mainstream magazine. Most of my classmates went to work for places like Hogs, which was like some trade magazine for pig farming and stuff. So it just feels amazing to be invited to Kellogg. It's like, okay, there's some sweet satisfaction.
Absolutely. It's always good to be at Kellogg, make use of their resources. So it's always good. That's right.
But it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, wonderful. Mallika?
So some of you saw my husband this morning. We came here in 1998. I feel really old being back. My kids now are in college, so it's quite a circle. I was the first person for MTV when we launched in India. So I did that before coming to Kellogg. Yeah. And I was put in the poet section. I don't know if you have that anymore, but I was with the race car driver, the band manager. We were all creatives and had a lot of fun in our section. Yeah. Sumant was put in a section which was all Indian engineers and maths people. And he was like, why am I stuck here? And you're around so many fun people. But we had a great time here at Kellogg. I mean, it was a roller coaster, which I'll talk about, but Mohan Sahni became a board member. I actually dropped out of Kellogg after my first year. I had raised $12 million in venture financing. Mohan was our board member. Kanwal was one of my angel investors, turned out to be a dud. So we went through that entire experience. So it's really full circle being back here and wonderful.
We've heard that word a few times today. Let's go back a few years before Northwestern. What were your early experiences? Who shaped you, or what shaped you? Who were early influences in your life, or what were early influences in your life that got you to Northwestern? Anupama, I'll start with you.
My sort of great pivot in life was falling in love with Bollywood, which happened in like late 80s, early 90s. And it's really strange because my mother is Kamala Chandra. She's a writer. She wrote Chandni and Prem Rog for Yash Chopra and Raj Kapoor. But we were removed from the film industry. We were not filmy kids in any way. But at some point, I went to work for Movie Magazine just as a why not. I didn't know what I was interested in, really. And then just fell in love with the nuttiness of the film industry.
Right.
Which was really like the Wild West at that time. Right. And then I said, I'm going to be a film journalist, but I need to know how to do it.
Right.
And so I went to apply to, master's programs in journalism, got rejected at Columbia, their loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Columbia who? Yeah.
Exactly. And then came here. And I think the push was always just that complete mad and insane obsession with the movies, with specifically Hindi cinema.
Sure.
Because I always knew that even though I was here, I was going to go back. And in the early 90s, nobody went back.
Right.
But for me, it was always that I'm going to go back and I'm going to write about Hindi films.
Right.
And that was really the influencer and the push.
Wonderful. I'm going to push you a little bit on that middle education, since these Kellogg folks don't know about middle. So what is about middle that really helped you grow in your career? What were some of the skills that you picked up here that helped you?
Vijay, I think it gave me a foundation that has structured the rest of my career.
Right.
It was a one-year master's, and just the learning and, of course, the the practical learning, of what it takes to be a journalist, but also the ethics.
Yeah.
That whole idea that Abe Peck put into us that, advertising and editorial is a church and state separation,
Right.
and the twain cannot meet.
Right.
Everything I do has come from that,
Yeah.
and it's increasingly difficult because in the last 20 years, Indian entertainment journalism has become increasingly just advertorial material. And it's all marketing, it's not really journalism. So for us, but for me, it's those ideas of what is sacrosanct.
Yes.
Even if you're doing, it's not political journalism, it's not business journalism, it's kind of seen as a little bit, what a film journalist, like that.
Yeah.
But even there, you have to have what you can do and what you will do. And frankly, since I've married into the mob, Chopra right here, those lines have just become more and more blurred. So eventually it's a line in your head as opposed to the actual separation that you need. But that line in your head needs to be really clear. And that, I think, comes from Medill. So I cannot be grateful enough to have had that.
And today we've spoken so much about innovation and storytelling, but also balancing that with ethics. And so that's been sort of the resounding story today. So thanks so much for that. By the way, I know at your time, maybe the journalism part of the school didn't really appreciate film and sports, but I don't want to say you're all part of the family now, so hard feelings. Mallika, who were early influences in your life, or what really influenced you to get you here to Northwestern and Kellogg?
Okay, so we're obviously the Chopra panel over
That's
here.
right.
So many of you may know my father is the well-known author Deepak Chopra. So I grew up actually in a family where my parents' experience really shaped me. So they came here like Kanwal with $8 in their pocket, no money, had never seen a color television before, they walked into a store and were able to rent a car, lease a car on credit. They had never heard of the concept before. And so they also they were the American dream realized. My early memories of childhood, though, are of my father as a stressed out, miserable, unhappy person who, when he wasn't working, was drinking to fall asleep, smoked incessantly, and when he was home, basically was always in a bad mood, and my parents were fighting all the time, that my brother and I actually never wanted him around. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, something truly transformational happened in his life, which is he discovered meditation. And he, overnight, stopped drinking, stopped smoking, had walked into a TM center in those days, and came home, made my mom learn how to meditate. The next day made his brother, my chacha and family learn how to meditate, then my mom's sister and family to meditate. We grew up in Boston. By the end of the week, the entire Indian community in Boston had to learn how to meditate. My dad was one of those people that took everyone along for the ride. And so for me, and it fits into the work I do now, is at 9 years old, there was a major transformation in my family. And we went from a very stressed out, non-cohesive family to a family where finally my dad would look at me and my brother and be like, oh, so what grade are you in? What do you study? Suddenly he was aware of us, and it created this huge transformation. That said, of course, when I graduated from college, I wanted nothing to do with my parents' world. And I actually got this opportunity to launch MTV in India. I met Sumant at the first ever rave in New Delhi. So it was a very non-Chopra-esque type of thing. And I was the total misfit, actually, at Kellogg. I think basically I applied to Kellogg so that Sumant and I could figure out a way to come from India back to the U.S. So again, that's why I'm a perennial entrepreneur. I started a company, dropped out, within a year. Sumant, thank God, continued and graduated. And then he had no job when he graduated, as we mentioned. But Kellogg was a great place for us. We were young. We were tour de force of energy. It was actually 98, which was the best time to raise money. It was the heyday of the internet. So actually, in my first quarter here, I raised $12 million in venture financing. There were about 20 to 30 of us who dropped out. Everyone else had returned, and I hadn't returned. When my company went under, I remember sitting in an office with boxes, packing up my servers, doing things like that, and being like, what am I going to do now? And I discovered I was pregnant. And so Deepak Jain, who was a dean over here at Kellogg, called me and he said, Mallika, I want you to finish your MBA. And I said, I can't. I'm about to have a baby. And he said, no, we're going to figure it out and we're going to make you complete your MBA. And so I actually, 2 years later, came back to Kellogg with a newborn baby. And the reason I wanted to emphasize this about the influences, because there's been a lot of talk about India and what kind of makes an Indian successful. Deepak Jain was committed to me. And he's like, you're going to do it. And then I had 3 mothers. So my mother, my mother-in-law, and my Masi took turns 1 month at a time. They stayed with me in Park Evanston over here, up the road. I would breastfeed, run to class, go back, did all my group meetings there. But I had all these mothers in my life who were like, you are going to do this. And they were really committed.
Wonderful.
That, I think we have to thank our culture, of having that kind of support.
Absolutely. By the way, I met Dean Jain a few days ago in Mumbai, and he passed on his regards to you. So
he's the best.
Yeah, he's an absolute gem of a gentleman.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to continue with you, Mallika. Now, you started Chopra Global. Now, what was your idea behind that company? What was the vision? Where are you right now? And what have you learned from that journey?
So I'm one of those serial entrepreneurs. I've had so many companies, a lot of failures, and I have a book called Living with Intent, my somewhat messy journey to purpose, peace, and joy. So for me, there's nothing straight about my line. Chopra Global is actually my father's company, and I took it over about 3 years ago. And, in the last session, she was talking about, will India be able to export our ideas? And I think my father is a great example of who has brought, different traditions, Ayurveda and mindfulness meditation to the world. That being said, my dad never should have been a business person, and he had a business. And so a few years ago, again, going back to family and tradition, I ended up taking over Chopra Global. We have a large company. What we do is we certify people to become teachers of meditation, Ayurveda, yoga, or coaching. We have about 6,000 certified teachers all over the world who have gone through our programs. We, of course, have an app. We have all kinds of things. But my role at Chopra Global has been more of cleaning it up, getting it organized, and actually thinking about the legacy of my dad's work. So again, has taken a different kind of role than I ever thought I would do.
It's amazing. And I was reading your book, Living with the Intent, yesterday. I was on the flight back from Mumbai, and it's a fascinating read. Just encourage all of you to get that book and read it. It's really amazing. So thanks so much for sharing your experiences in that book. Anupama, you are the starter of Film Companion. What is your vision behind setting up Film Companion? What did you hope to achieve with that, and what have you learned from that journey?
So this year is 10 years of Film Companion, and the attempt again was to create a place that actually practices what I learned here, which is, smart, engaging, credible journalism, which has been eroding, as I said, over the last 20 years, especially when it comes to film. So it was really that, and not just Hindi cinema, but Indian cinema. And I'm so, we had a South arm pre-Bahubali. So it wasn't that we followed the trend of pan-India. The vision was always pan-India, that we would be a digital-first company that talked about cinema from across the country, and that kind of didn't have a caste system when it came to the various cinemas, so Hindi was not necessarily better than Telugu or Tamil or anything else. That was the vision. That continues to be the vision. It's very hard. A film critic entrepreneur is not a good idea. I need, Mallika, lots of help in cleaning up all the stuff you're doing for your father. It's a very hard thing to do. So we tried to raise money, had some very interesting conversations, and then finally, it was so I have to share this story. I did this pitch to Chinese investors sometime pre-pandemic, and I went into this whole spiel about credibility and smart and this and that and integrity and how the point of being a film critic without integrity. I mean, you can't be a film critic if you're not going to say what you really feel, and if there's conflicts of interest, and if you're biased, and integrity. And then he stops after this whole lecture that I gave, and he looked at me and he said, "But integrity is not monetizable."
Oh.
And I just looked at him and I was like, oh my God, I don't even know why I'm having this conversation. And I came home really sad, and Vinod said, what happened? And I said, don't think it's going to happen because, we're not even on the same page. And he said, I'm the only VC you need in your life. So it has been very, very hard, but I'm learning on the way.
Wow. That has the makings of a new movie and a new script here. Now, I was in Bombay just a few days ago, and it's been amazing to see what's happening in the city. It's absolute transformation. If you go to the Geo World Convention Center, it's a state-of-the-art, absolutely something that you've not seen built. But is this the era of institution building in India and Mumbai? We have had artists, we have had creative people, we have directors. Money's been there for some time, I guess. But was institution the missing piece in this whole puzzle? Is that how you see it? And what do you see as the future with such things coming up? And I heard now Delhi has a bigger convention center than Geo, so it looks like this seems to be the game right now.
Yeah, I think with NMACC, it's an incredible hub.
Yeah.
And it's kind of allowed us all, because we did the Mumbai Film Festival there last year, you think differently when a place like that exists. But I don't think the Hindi film industry is still invested enough in institution building. I don't think that there is enough just sort of broader vision. It's still too much about Friday to Friday and what the box office is and who's the current hot superstar. I think there needs to be much more sort of a long vision there, which everyone's just too involved with what their project is in the moment. But it will come. It will come. They've in the 25 plus years I've done this, it's changed completely.
Right.
Completely. Like I said, in the beginning, it was just the Wild West. And I remember specifically, when I first saw more women on sets, dheere dheere that change has come in when we got industry status, when the first multiplex was built in the late 90s. Right. So it is an industry that's transforming rapidly.
Right.
And I'm hoping that institution and legacy and paying it forward
comes
in, but it's not really there yet.
Right. In Kellogg or in business, we often say, are you market-driven or market-driving? So I'm going to ask, is India being more market-driven? Are we building this institution so that we have plays like Mamma Mia and Matilda coming and then we learning, oh, that's the way to do it? Or do you think we can be market-driving where our innovative ideas can be the fuel for innovation and then taking it global? How do you see things playing out?
I think it will be market-driving.
Yeah.
I just look at how much in the spotlight South Asians have emerged in the last literally 5-7 years, and I'm not talking just about Priyanka. There's so many other faces, there's so many people who are shaping that narrative, so there's definitely scope to be, and what's interesting is the people in the business are now thinking global. And especially the women, Deepika, Alia, they're all wanting a global presence, which is really exciting.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think eventually in India, stars drive everything.
They do, to a large part.
Let's just admit it.
Yeah, they do. Now, Mallika, when you talk about health, and especially mental health, is such a serious topic. And I think only now we are really giving the right, due attention to it. I'll be honest, when I was an engineer in Pilani, IT guys, I still love Pilani, and I think there are a few bits in here too. But as an engineer, when I was stressed, I had a very wise man come and advise me. The wise man's name was Old Monk, right? But I think it's time to go and be a little bit more serious about mental health and stress. And I wish I was more aware and educated about how to handle stress and pressure. How do you really see this growing beyond certain individuals, adopting these practices, health and wellness, as opposed to making it more broadly, reachable across society? Do we influence policy makers? What do you see the way forward to get more people aware of mental health and take care of themselves more proactively?
Well, I don't think we have a choice,
Yeah.
because we're in a mental health crisis right now. Suicide rates
Yeah.
are out of the roof, especially after COVID. And our children are suffering. So the work that I've evolved into doing, when my dad started talking about the mind-body connection or practices for self-care or well-being, he was called the East Asian witch doctor who sold snake oil. So, of course, he was not East Asian at all. And he was, talking about ancient wisdom traditions in modern language. He's been doing that now for 50 plus years. What happened to me is when my children were in second, third grade, I realized that these kids at 8 years old, 9 years old, have a lot of anxiety. They have a lot of stress. So forget about us as adults. I was seeing these children who are already suffering. And so, I mentioned that I learned how to meditate when I was 9. And what happened in my family is my parents, my brother and I saw a transformation in our family life. And so my brother and I, they never made us meditate or do anything but we saw by their example. So actually what I did, I'm an author by background, and I decided that, I think there's a gap in the market. This is where the Kellogg education actually helped me. There was nothing in the market that was addressing children's mental health, but for children to be read by children. So there are a lot of parenting books and there are a lot of kind of theoretical books. So I wrote a very simple book called Just Breathe, which is written for 8-year-olds. So when an 8-year-old can pick up a book and they can flip through it and just see photos and basically bullet points of how to meditate, or, as it evolved, the next book became Just Feel, which is social emotional awareness, and then Just Be You, which is self-reflection. And what we realized is that children actually influence their parents. So if we can also go to schools and we can go to educators and influence people. So I've really approached all of my books as products. I would say that's kind of where the Kellogg education has served me well in my life. And I think, we really can't avoid this, whether it's in businesses, in the Army, post-traumatic stress, worldwide, not just in the U.S., in schools, you name it. And now programs, institutions are really looking at how can we incorporate these practices into our everyday fabric and leadership.
Wonderful. Have you done any work directly with these institutions? Can you share something more with us?
So I work with everyone. I've gone to, everyone from big corporates like Google, Coke, Nike. We go in and we work with companies. And then schools. For me in particular, I do a lot of work actually with superintendents and going into school systems. And again, how do we bring simple practices? And they really are simple practices. And I'd love to do an exercise if we have some time to really help people connect with ourselves and in that connection to get a sense of groundedness and the ability to not just live in a fight-flight response all the time.
Yeah. We often say we're busy, we have a million things going on, and often it seems like when we want to recover and heal, it seems like I have to stop everything else, go on a retreat, and then come back. But is there something more day to day that we can do every day to take care of ourselves and make sure we have that balance? I'm sure balance is not 50-50, but however we find a way to recover. Yeah.
Yes, so here we are at the India Business Conference, right? India, we have the greatest wisdom and practices that go back centuries and millennium. And these are simple practices. And so I will say, I think it's really important for Indians, and I know, the government in India now is embracing much more of yoga and Ayurveda and our traditions. But I think as individuals, we really, exploring our own tradition actually is something that can really help us. And so maybe right now I'll just do a very quick exercise.
Let's do it.
If you don't mind. Something different from the rest of the day.
Okay.
So if everyone just sits comfortably, put away your phones, put away your devices. And this will last 2 minutes. But, this is an exercise I do a lot with children. I do it a lot with adults. And in 2 minutes, what you can realize is that you can really anchor yourselves in your body and in your mind, and also add self-reflection. Because I think a big thing that we hear about as people are confused about what is meditation, things like that, the holy sages who were meditating in our caves in the Himalayas were not stressed out in life. They were actually meditating to think about the larger questions of the universe. So I like to remind people about that. But here's a simple exercise. Just sit comfortably. Maybe notice your posture, but you can sit however you want. And I'd love you to just take a deep breath in and out. And I'm going to ask you to repeat the words I am. So I-A-M, I am. I am is like a mantra. What is a mantra? A mantra is a tool of the mind. So man is mind, tra is for instrument, a tool of the mind. We're using I am here, but we are mostly an Indian audience. We know Om, you may have your own mantras. I am represents the infinite. I am to the finite. So, just in your head, and if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And for less than a minute, I'm going to ask you to repeat the words I am mentally in your head. And when your attention drifts away from the words I am, which it will and is completely normal and natural, come back to the words I am. All right, so we'll just sit quietly for less than a minute, repeating I am. I am. I am. Now you can stop repeating the words I am. If you're comfortable, keep your eyes closed and take a breath in and out. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. Don't feel the need to intellectually answer these questions, but experience the answers. First question, who am I? Who am I? What do I want? What do I really, really want? How can I serve? Maybe begin with how can I serve myself? And now, how can I serve my world? And now bring your attention to your heart and ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for today? So you can take a deep breath in and out. releasing any sensations, images, feelings, thoughts may have come up. And if your eyes were closed, open your eyes. So these traditions, in this very simple exercise, we don't have to dissect it. You took a deep breath, you became aware of your body, you silenced your thoughts maybe for a little, or your thoughts were racing, and there was some self-reflection. And so, we live in a world that is crazy. We have a lot of very ambitious and smart people in this room whose journeys are just beginning, coming back after 25 years, lots of ups and downs. But I hope that what I wanted to contribute to this is some self-reflection, because you're getting a lot of data and information, but some self-reflection about why are you doing all this?
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That's great. So I'm going to take us to that crazy world of social media and AI. Right? I was with, again, Dean Jane a few days ago, and if you know Dean Jane, he's got these one-line singers. So he says, we're teaching artificial intelligence to humans and emotional intelligence to machines. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That's exactly maybe what we're doing here. So as we get into this crazy world of social media, where content is being created, it's so easy. All I need is a camera and a light, and I put it out there. It's easy to distribute content out there. How do you see it for the media industry? Do you see it as a double-edged sword? Do you see opportunity? Of course, credibility and integrity become a huge issue. How do you see this playing out here?
So there's definitely opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting. There is a certain sort of democratizing that has come in, and people with talent have emerged, But there's always the flip side. Like, I don't think people, at least in the Hindi film industry, are really grappling with AI yet. It's not a big threat. But, I hear constantly about casting directors talking about who has bigger Instagram profiles. Who has the bigger Instagram digital footprint. And that cannot be the reason to cast someone, but it is increasingly becoming, because then they're automatically going to help you market it.
That's right.
But there's also the flip side of somebody saying, "My God, I saw her do X on it." So you're constantly auditioning, especially for actors, or even for like a DOP. They're putting their work out there. They're getting hired. Yeah. So it's very complicated. Yeah. It's a very complicated thing. I think the influencer culture is especially when it comes to entertainment journalism, is become again very complicated, because for a lot of actors, they would just rather speak to an influencer rather than talk to me, because I might ask an uncomfortable question. But if you're talking to an influencer who you may or may not have paid, it's all, it's happy and giggly, and they'll praise your film, and that's the end of it. So this whole line again between what is marketing and what is journalism has been blurring for so many years, and with social media, it's blurred completely. And for me, that's the area of concern. But I think in terms of opportunity, it has, including for me. Yeah. I mean, I'd be the last person to diss it. I'm as much on Instagram and Twitter, X, as everybody else. So it's something I struggle with constantly. And I would, if you have any advice on phone addiction, I would love to hear it. I think we all need to hear it.
Absolutely.
So it's a very interesting time. Yeah. And I'm, in fact, at the Mumbai Film Festival, we've collaborated with Apple to create 5 films shot completely on iPhones. And they're incredible movies. So again, it's that kind of opportunity, which is so amazing, because 5 directors have got platforming. But how do you deal with the flip side?
Yes.
That's the scary stuff.
Yeah. We're going to see whether there's going to be a regulation that comes in, or it's just going to be a free-for-all, and somehow we're going to reach some sort of equilibrium. Maybe the economists can guide us on what that equilibrium is going to be maybe in a few years from now.
I think for me, the way that I look at social media is actually from the mental health perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, I want to make sure that as we have new entrepreneurs and new people going into marketing, that we do retain the responsibility to think about what these mediums are doing, especially for our children. So we know that, a like on Instagram increases dopamine for, a little bit, but then it goes crashing down. And I think a lot of the mental health trauma we're seeing in the world is an effect of social media. We cannot deny that, actually, as educators and people in the mental health space. So what does one do? I started my career working with MTV. And I remember, I went through my own moment of, is this the path that I want to go down? Because I'd grown up in a very different way, and so I decided to go down a different path. I'm a big believer in mediums, but mediums are just a way to tell stories. Mm-hmm. So, the ways that we tell stories will keep changing, and the platforms will keep changing. But I do think we need to, for those of us who are shaping it or marketing it, we do have to take a responsibility also to think about the impact it's having not just on our generation and our addiction, but for our kids. And it is having drastic effects for our kids. So I am a believer in delay when it comes to children. Mm-hmm. But, I did a kind of YouTube show with a bunch of other professionals on perfectly imperfect parenting. And my kind of shot of that was me addicted to my phone. Yeah. Because, again, we're telling our kids don't do this stuff, but we're addicted ourselves.
Absolutely.
So, I'm a big believer in all the mediums, but I think I don't believe in regulation, but I do believe that parents or the people who are making these shows also need to have a responsibility because things now spread so fast. So it's a difficult question, but the ship has sailed as well.
I think that's a problem we have right now. The ship has sailed. Obviously, now we have to try and figure out what best can we do in this given situation. It's households, it's families, it's mothers and fathers sort of coming and telling kids what's the right thing to do. But I think they're all trying to figure out what is the right thing to do and what is the right balance. And each maybe family is going to have its own way of dealing things. So that
but I think families need guidance as well. And
exactly.
So I do think it is up to those who either, on a government level, which I know in India there's more is happening, and here just focusing on mental health. But even as the people who are building this stuff, and Sumant is doing a lot in AI, we have to really think about these things as the ones who are creating them as well.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, we're going to move into the final phase of this session. I'm going to throw a googly at you since it's IPL time. So I've just got a set of rapid-fire questions. I've got 5 questions. I want you to tell me the first thing on your mind.
She goes first.
All right. Clearly, she's played this a few times. All right. So we have a first mover disadvantage since the questions will be repeated.
Do you have a hamper for us?
I do not have a hamper. I have to ask KJ for that, but that's fine. Maybe next time. All right. So Mallika, we'll go with you. All right. In 5 years, India will be... The first thing that comes to your mind.
I hope a beacon of light.
Beacon
I
of light.
really do hope so.
All right. So, one thing the West can learn from India is?
Ancient wisdom traditions for healing.
Yeah. The secret to happiness is?
Self-awareness.
In 10 years, I see myself as?
Oh, gosh. Still trying to figure it out.
Still trying to figure it out. You love Northwestern because?
I had a lot of fun and a lot of love here.
Yeah.
It's very special.
Shared with us. Thank you so much. That was great. Wonderful. All right, Anupama, we're going to go with you. In 5 years, India will be?
I think still a very complicated place.
I can see. One thing the West can learn from India is?
Song and dance.
Yeah.
So much fun.
There's so much more color. Don't get me wrong.
It's so much joy.
That's right.
So much everything.
That's right. Yeah. Now people start noticing colored socks and colored shoes and everything because everything here, it's so rare. That's right. The secret to happiness is?
I think good friendship.
Good friendships, yeah. In 10 years, I see myself as?
Oh man, probably still chasing Bollywood actors. Suhana Khan, the next. So my
Yes,
cutoff,
that's right.
my cutoff to myself was Taimur,
Yeah.
and I said, okay. When Taimur and I do an interview, I'll say no. But then,
Okay.
have you seen what Raha, Alia, and Ranbir's daughter looks like?
Oh, yeah, I heard.
Stunning.
Absolutely.
So I'm just here for longer.
Oh, there
now.
you go. In business, we call that customer lifetime value, so
Yeah.
that's fine. You love Northwestern because?
Because it gave me a foundation.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks to both of them. Wonderful.
Oh, more?
One last question. So, last question. We always want to end with some advice. So, you've been in the shoes of our young students and leaders. What would be your advice so that they can live their life with intent? So, Mallika, I'm going to start with you.
Keep asking questions. Sumant said this earlier, your first job is not going to be what defines, in fact, your job is never going to define you. So keep asking yourself questions. You come to many forks in the road. You make some choices, you make some terrible choices, but then ask yourself questions again. And, that is, I always say it's that somewhat messy journey, but you can make it full of, in every moment, some sort of learning and inspiration.
Thank you so much. Anupama?
I think if you love something, even if it's not what anybody thinks you should be doing, when I became a film journalist, even my parents were slightly embarrassed.
Yes.
Film journalism was really the dregs of, like Bollywood journalism. Like people couldn't imagine that you would go to Northwestern.
Right.
And then come back. First of all, that was a shocker. And then come back and write about, I don't know, Govinda, who I love.
Yes.
But I think if you love it and you give it everything and you do it well, you will help to shape it.
Absolutely.
And you can make something of it,
Yeah.
even if it's not
Yeah.
anything substantial when you first start out. So just do it, is what I would say.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have time? All right. So we have time for Q&A. I understand 2 questions.
Guys, we have only time for 2 questions.
The criteria, as Professor Mohanbir Sawhney, was short and insightful. All right. Can we go to the back here? We need one of those boxes with a mic that you can throw.
Sorry. Thanks, Anupama and Mallika, for doing this. My question is, we're talking about balancing a creative mindset. So, Anupama, I've been watching your content for so long now, big fan. How do you balance critique and praise when you're doing a film review?
Well, you don't go into a review saying, I'm going to balance it. Because the review has to be true to what you felt. So if I really don't like a film, the last film I really didn't like was Animal. I know I'm going to get into trouble all over again for saying this, but you have to be true. See, I never want to be disrespectful. Yeah, I know. I told him, don't get us into trouble, and I'm getting us into trouble. So, coming back to your question, you don't balance. I never want to be disrespectful. I never want to be condescending. I never want to have a bias going in. So you don't go into a film saying, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. No, I go into every film thinking this is going to be the most amazing film, and it's usually not. But balance is not a priority. It's basically being true to what I felt about the movie and saying it in the most respectful and engaging way possible.
Yeah. Hi. Again, huge fan of Film Companion. My favorite thing when a new movie comes out is reading your review or seeing Rahul Desai savagely roast them. That's the best part. But my question's more like, I think the Indian film industry or whatever media we're getting out of India is changing rapidly over the last few years because of OTT and the content that's coming out of the multiple platforms. So how have you seen that new medium come in, affect the kind of content you're seeing and the quality of just media that's coming out and that you get to review?
So it's really exciting because I think streaming platforms have opened a whole new world. And, the first few years were really try everything. So we saw the emergence of a whole new generation of actors. People, with theatrical, there were just too many keepers in the room and too many ideas of what a typical hero or a heroine should look like. And I think that whole thing has just now vanished and there's so much and writers, my God, streaming platforms have completely changed the world for writers because they're the busiest people. You can't get a good writer for love or money. And that's a wonderful thing because they were really, really not being respected or paid enough. I think what I hope to see in the next 5 years is that same level of, a Jaideep Ahlawat coming up or a Pratik Gandhi coming up or shows like Sacred Games or Kora or any of these things that are really kind of changing the landscape as opposed to too many event shows, which is now what's happening a lot. You do have Bollywood stars and to be fair, Sacred Games had Bollywood stars. We started out of the gate. The first Netflix show was with Saif Ali Khan. Mm-hmm. But I hope that that it's always in streaming about story rather than star. That is critical. That streaming is built on content rather than faces you recognize. Right. And I hope we always stay with that because otherwise we go back to that whole thing of who opens a show, like who opens a film. And then there's the same 5 men and 3 women.
That's right. One final question maybe for Mallika, if someone has a question. Yeah, can we have a mic? Can we send one mic up there to the lady in blue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Especially when I talk to undergrads, but especially grads, I'm a big believer, go out and make money because without money, you're really stressed. But there's some of you who may have this entrepreneurial need to create something. And that doesn't come, I love the earlier session because you're not going to make money most of the time really quick doing that. That's part of your purpose or what you need to do, then you'll figure it out and you'll make a lot of sacrifices. But if when you're young, you're feeling like a real need to make money and establish a family, it's very important to make money. I think money is a big part of well-being. So how has it changed for me? I mean, I watched my parents who had no money and then did really well. Sumant and I, when we graduated, really had no money and no jobs. And, I was pregnant and we actually were in a pretty tough situation, even though we had all the family support. And so we needed to make money before we could kind of go on and do other things. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah. You should have enough so that you don't have to think about it too much.
Maybe not inspiring advice, but it's practical.
Let's say they're complements, not supplements. No, they don't substitute each other.
That being said, I will say, and again, Kanwal, as someone who really is a beacon for anyone who is an entrepreneur in this country, but especially for us as Indians, you supported my first company. You were a huge help to Sumant. there were people there who have paved the way that make it much easier for people like us to go out and actually get funding and maybe get money to kind of survive, not just with doing night service, doing dishes. So thank you.
All right, so that's about wraps it up. Thanks to both of you once again for coming over here. I think the organizers will talk. So we have a... All right. Mallika Chopra, this is for you. Thank you so much.
Guys, we're having a 10-minute short break. And the next session starts with Vidhu Vinod Chopra. And then we have the final session for the day. We are meeting at 4:10.